let's dive into who I'm higher, lower, and throwing Hail Marys at for the wide receiver position. I'm not worried at all about DeAndre Hopkins because we got Colt McCoy back this coming week. Yes, 10 targets, 1 catch. All that's terrifying, and maybe you're not even worried about Hopkins in your finals because you got knocked out after that absolute dud. But Colt McCoy has religiously peppered DeAndre Hopkins. In fact, across his Cardinals career, in the 7 games with Colt McCoy, Hopkins averages 16.7 fantasy points per game compared to 15.8 without him. He's been better with Colt McCoy, is all that tells you. So at minimum, you have no reason to be worried. Fire him up. I'm 6 spots above the ECR when I have Hopkins at my wide receiver 9. Plus, you get the Atlanta matchup, a top 3 matchup for receivers. Everything's coming up in spades for a big Hopkins game. You'd be a fool to bench him despite last week's despicable stud performance. You got Garrett Wilson in terms of who I'm lower on this week, and he's my wide receiver 19, so probably in lineups, but he's ranked right now as a fringe top 12 guy. And yes, I understand with Mike White, 24 and 20 points in 2 of those starts, but where I look more is that Bills game where he had 11 points, the wide receiver 29. Abysmal, not by any means. Very useful, 11 points. That's fine. But it's more of a fringe wide receiver 3 at that point. He's now getting matched up with a Seattle defense, giving up the second fewest points to wide receivers. But in general, number 1 wide receivers, Tariq Woolen has been shadowing him, and he's been unbelievable as a rookie. Sure, Sauce Gardner, insane for the Jets. But if there was any other guy in that conversation for rookie of the year defensively, it's Tariq Woolen. He's been absolutely insane, and he's been locking down number 1s all year. So I would just be a little skeptical of treating Wilson as this fringe top 12 guy, and then consider him a top 20 guy, but at the bottom end of that rather than the top end. So in shallower leagues, I don't think he's the absolute must start he's being made out to be. I'm also, though, in terms of actually benching, probably not benching Garrett Wilson, but I'm a little bit hesitant to put Mike Evans into my lineup. My wide receiver 32, that's 12 spots below the ECR. He has not been a top 32 wide receiver since week 9. Wide receiver 34, 45, 75, 45, 49, 32, 57. Abysmal. It's been awful. And I know as soon as you bench him, your championship week, right? The perfect time to bench him for him to erupt for 35 points. But if you'd been benching him this whole time, you'd be much better off for it. So Mike Evans, finding my pine. I do not want him in my lineup. I met Horn maybe shadowing him. In terms of my Hail Mary, a guy we've gotten a bunch of questions on, and that's Jahan Dotson. Love the guy. In his last 3 games, 14, 19, and 17 fantasy points. So no duds in there. Solid floor baked in, especially now that he's got Carson Wentz coming back, who he's averaged 14.3 points per game in the 5 games together. He put up 17, 16, 2, and 12 points in those first 4 starts. And then last week calls in that touchdown from Carson Wentz as well. They have a nice special rapport. It's been bad news for Terry McLaurin to have Carson Wentz in the lineup, but it's been great news for Dotson and Curtis Samuel. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.